It's Ash from SuperVideos back for another video for The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at one of the most talked about scenes of the premiere of The Ones Who Live, something that happened pretty early on in the episode. Now, I will be uploading this video alongside a few other ones as soon as the episode airs. So with that, there are no spoilers for those who haven't watched it because you'll be watching the episode, not necessarily being on YouTube, so you won't get spoiled. But of course, I was able to watch the episode on AMC Plus earlier today. I did post my reaction, so you can go check it out. But the scene we're talking about is the scene that involved Rick amputating his own hand to try to escape. So I'm gonna share my thoughts and opinions about that and how I think this impacts the story for Rick Grimes going forward. So stay tuned, we'll be right back to break this down. Alright, as always, before we dive into it, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. With that said, let's dive right into it. So before we talk about the impact of Rick losing his hand and my thoughts and opinions around it, I do need to go through a little bit of backstory as far as what ended up happening to put Rick in a spot where he lost his hand. So of course, at this point in the story, in the first few minutes, we know that Rick is part of the CR's worker camp. So he's basically trying to get accepted into the Civic Republic. And he's basically forced by the CRM to kill walkers for them and do a lot of physical labor to prove his worth. And of course, we know that it's a situation at this point that we see here where there are some walkers in the woods. They are on fire. And as a result of that, they are expanding and spreading the fire beyond a point where it can be controlled. So what CRM does is it brings its workers in the helicopter and basically gets them to do the dirty work for them. Kill the walkers using the hammers and axes that they have in order to prevent the walkers from coming further in. And of course, Rick and Pearl are two of the workers who are there. Of course, we see Rick chained to a CRM soldier. Now, why did they do that with Rick and nobody else? Well, the reason for that is because Rick has tried to escape by this point 3 other times. So, Major General Beale himself doesn't trust Rick. Now, you might be asking, why don't they just kill Rick? And they obviously explained that in the episode. It's Lieutenant Donald Okafor basically uses his status to help Rick out and keep him there because he believes in Rick Grimes. He thinks that Rick can become a leader for his cause, which we're going to talk about on a separate video. But that's why Rick is chained to the CRM soldier and nobody else is. And I actually love the fact that they explained that, because if you just had everyone chained, then you would think maybe CRM would see this coming, and even bigger than that, why would they even keep everyone there if they don't want to be there? But of course, as they explained, everyone else wants to stay. It's only Rick that wants to escape. And because of Donald Okafor and what he said, they are forced to put all of these resources in to make sure Rick doesn't try to escape again. But with all of that said, this is basically what kickstarts his escape plan. We know that Rick finally realizes that the only way to escape is to do something drastic, something extreme. So what he does is he pretty much puts himself in a situation where he is isolated. There are no soldiers around. Tourniquets his arm, proceeds to amputate his own hand in order to escape. Now, this is another thing that I was worried wouldn't really work, but they explained it very well. And it has to do with why didn't Rick get infected when chopping his hand off. And it's because the hammer that he's using is on fire as well, because he's been killing all of these walkers that have flames inside of them. Now, that's a double-edged sword, because then you would say the walkers are infected, it would get the virus into the hammer. If he uses that to cut his hand, that means he's infected and everything that goes with that. But Of course, because the fire or the flame kills the virus to an extent, you could explain it like that. But obviously, that's why Rick doesn't get infected right away. I loved Andrew Lincoln's performance here. It reminded me a lot of when he was forced to cut off Carl's hand, which he obviously didn't have to go through with. But this is very reminiscent of that whole situation back in season 7, episode 1 of The Walking Dead's original show. But Andrew Lincoln's performance here is absolutely great. You definitely see it in his eyes that Rick is a broken man. A broken man that sees no other choice but to cut off his own hand in order to escape. But obviously he chops off his own hand, and that scene was definitely gruesome. It was great. You know, it was definitely one of those things where even though people have a problem with Rick losing his hand, or some people do, I do as well, but not fully at this point. I'm definitely loving this story for what it is, but you can't deny the fact that it was awesome and epic to see Rick losing his hand. But also, the other part of it is they had Rick put his arm with the amputated hand inside another fire in order to make sure that it doesn't get infected and all of that. And I absolutely love that they explained that. It's a small thing, but it helps the scene be grounded, and it just adds on to the realism, which I absolutely loved. But obviously Rick passes out and his escape fails for the 4th time now. Obviously with Rick losing his hand, we have a Rick that has his comic arc, which is great for those that really wanted to see it. My problem with it is that Merle already had his hand cut off. Aaron pretty much got Rick's comic appearance by having his arm amputated because of being crushed and everything. And of course, Lydia near the end of the series. So I don't think that we necessarily needed it. But like I said, I don't mind it at this point. I think what they did is great, and everything kind of came together in a nice way. And I love the fact that they gave him this prosthetic hand. He looks super cool with it, especially since he obviously has the knife attached to the end. Now, some people may say that this is pretty much like Merle's weapon, so it's not original, but at this point, it doesn't really matter anymore. They've done it, and it kind of worked for the most part, so that's awesome. Now, one thing is, we all thought that this would mean that Rick is going to get a little weaker by having his hand cut off. But I absolutely love the fact that they also subtly explained that, because they had him be trained to be a CRM soldier by the best soldiers that are currently alive. So it's definitely realistic to think that Rick is going to learn by training with them to be able to be as strong as he was, maybe even stronger, even having one hand missing. So I think it definitely works, and I don't mind it whatsoever at this point. But with that said, I'm definitely intrigued to know your thoughts and opinions as well, so share that in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.